Hey guys, welcome back to Fantasy Tips. My name is Julian, and in today's episode, we're continuing the series of episodes that I've been making about each individual NHL team, talking about their players that are noteworthy, and if I think you should consider drafting those players. Today's episode, since we're going alphabetically, is about the Edmonton Oilers. Now, obviously, the Oilers have two of the absolute best players in the league in Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl, and obviously they're one of the favorites to win the Cup every single year because of that. Now stay tuned to find out how I project the Oilers to do this year and how I project some of their supporting players to do as well. Before we get started though guys, please leave a like, hit that subscribe button, and hit that notification bell if you want notifications for all of my pre-season content. Now without further ado, let's jump right into the Oilers lines. On the top line, I project Evander Kane, Connor McDavid, and Zach Hyman. On that second line, I project Nugent-Hopkins, Draisaitl, and Kailer Yamamoto. On the third line, Warren Foegele, McLeod, and Jesse Puljujarvi. Now first and second on the list are Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl, two of the absolute best players in the leagues, projected to go 1 and 2 overall, and both are absolute studs, guys. They're gonna guaranteed get over 100 points each again this year, and they're just pretty much must drafts in fantasy if you have the ability to draft them. The only guy who could potentially go ahead of Draisaitl is Austin Matthews, and there is a little bit of an issue with way too many natural centers this year in the league, so you may want to draft Draisaitl over Austin Matthews anyway, because Draisaitl does have that left wing eligibility and allows you a little bit more flexibility in your lineup. But definitely either or Matthews or Draisaitl second overall, both really, really good picks. Then I have Evander Kane, who's currently going at an ADP of 70.7 and was literally 19th in the league last year in terms of fantasy points per game. He shot the 15th most in terms of shots on goal per game, shots over 3.5 shots per game, and he's insanely valuable in pretty much all leagues, and even more so in hits leagues, because he was actually also 26th in the league last year in hits per game. Evander Kane is an absolute steal where he's currently going in drafts, and he's going to be playing on that top line with Connor McDavid and probably the top power play as well. He's someone that I do really like this year for fantasy. Absolute steal where he's currently going. Then I have Jack Campbell, who's currently going at ADP at 83.4, and he is at that ADP the 16th goalie off the board. Considering that in my top 25 goalies video, which you can watch right up there if you want to, I ranked him 10th overall as a 10th best fantasy goalie. Yeah, he's pretty good value where he's going as the 16th best goalie off the board. Definitely like Jack Campbell this year. He's going to finally bring some stability to that Edmonton Oilers goalie crease, and I think he's going to have himself a really nice season, and don't mind him at all at that ADP. Then I have Darnell Nurse, who's currently going at an ADP of 102.8. And Nurse last year finished as the 76th best player in terms of fantasy points per game. He is an absolute juggernaut for fantasy. He does it all. He shoots, he hits, and he blocks a lot of shots. Does everything for fantasy. As you can see last year, he didn't even put up that many points. 35 points in 71 games. Point every 2 games. Nothing too special there. But with all those peripherals, he definitely makes up for it. And that's why he's so valuable in especially categories leagues, but also point-based leagues that count those kind of stats. He's definitely someone that I really, really like. And considering that he finished 76th in the league and is currently ranked at an ADP of 102, he's pretty good value. Then I have Evan Bouchard, who's currently going at an ADP at 104.7. And Evan Bouchard finished as the 167th best player in terms of fantasy points per game last year. So being drafted at 104 is pretty early. Barrie is still likely at least going to start the year on that power play one, because other than that, Barrie doesn't provide a whole lot to the Oilers, so they're going to have to get him going there. So personally, guys, I'm going to be avoiding Bouchard, even though he may end up taking that power play 1 spot, and he could even end up improving even more over that amazing season he had last year. A 60 spot jump is just a little bit too much for me to merit drafting him here, although I don't think he's an absolute terrible draft pick at this range. Then I have Zach Hyman, and I don't have too much to say about Hyman. Had a pretty good year last year with the Edmonton Oilers, finished as the 127th best player in terms of fantasy points per game, being drafted around 123, 124 overall, so that's pretty much exactly on line with how he finished last year, so I don't think he's crazy value here, but he's definitely not a bad pick at this range, and he's got dual eligibility, which is pretty good. Then we have Ryan Nugent-Hopkins going in the ADP of 148, and he finished last year as the 125th best player in terms of points per game, which is 2 slots better than Zach Hyman, and he's going a little bit later than Hyman, and he should be playing with Draisaitl, top power play. I really do like Nugent-Hopkins this year, and he's got that dual eligibility as well with that center and left wing eligibility. And then I have Tyson Barrie, who last year finished as the 241st best player in terms of fantasy points per game, which is a big yikes because he was being drafted a lot earlier than that. Everyone, including me, was expecting him to have a much better season than that. He literally scored the most points out of any defenseman in the season prior to that. So Barrie just kind of fell off a cliff. Do I think he's going to bounce back this year? I do think he's going to have a decent bounce back season, but there's a chance that he doesn't, and that's why I'm not risking it drafting him here, which is about 100 spots higher than where he finished last year. Next, I have Kailer Yamamoto, currently not being drafted in the vast majority of leagues. Ended up with 41 points in 81 games, which is about a point every 2 games, which isn't anything too special, but he really struggled early in the season and really turned it on later in the season. If he can continue that momentum, I can see him having a pretty decent fantasy season, because right now I'm projecting him to play with Draisaitl and with Nugent-Hopkins, which is definitely not a bad spot to be. Can definitely see Yamamoto finally having a really, really good year. And you're going to be getting him super, super late in the draft, possibly with your last pick overall, if you do want to grab him. Definitely not bad value there. Then I have Jesse Puljujarvi. And last year, he had so many ups and downs, was very, very streaky, was very inconsistent, ended up with 36 points in 65 games. And while he wasn't bad last year in terms of fantasy points per game, I think that he's going to be traded. The rumors are that he is going to be traded. I know the Habs have inquired, and if he does go to Montreal, he's not going to have a whole lot of fantasy value because the Montreal Canadiens are not good this year. They're my team, but they're really not going to be good this year, guys. So I don't know where Puljujarvi exactly is going to be ending up, and that's why for now I'm going to be avoiding him, and he's not really going at any ADP anyway, so he probably won't be drafted. So you can just keep an eye on that situation, and if he does end up getting traded to a really good team and being deployed on a really top line, then maybe he might be worth picking up. But for now, I am not drafting him. And that's it, guys. Thank you so much for watching all the way through. Really appreciate it. Please leave a like, hit that subscribe button, and hit that notification bell if you want notifications for all of my preseason content. And follow me on Twitter at FantasyTipped. I'll be tweeting a lot starting soon and for the season, because I do want to help you guys in any way that I can to help you with your drafts and help you win your fantasy championships. Until next time, guys, I'll catch you in the next episode of Fantasy Tipped.